Howdy Beans, and welcome back to an exciting, potentially interesting episode of the Howdy Beans podcast. I'm your host, Luke the Elder Bean. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're all good, as per usual. Today, we're going to be looking at the 2011 Zack Snyder written and directed movie, Sucker Punch. There's a reason why I made that distinction. I never normally make the distinction. I actually never normally ever talk about the director or the writer of movies. But I need to make that distinction because it's going to become very important much later on. But before we get into all of that and more, I want to do housekeeping because I like to keep my house nice and clean. So make sure that you follow me on Twitter at HowdyBeans_pod. If you listen to this on YouTube and Spotify, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and to follow me on Spotify to leave a review as well. Also, you can find me now on Instagram and TikTok. Just type in the Howdy Beans podcast and you can find me there and add me there and see all the extra things that I'm doing on there. I do loads of little short movie reviews and book reviews and nerdy things over on TikTok. So if you want more content from me, TikTok is where you want to be. So, Sucker Punch. Yeah, this movie, it's an odd one. It's a very strange one because my memories of it are very vague. And you're probably thinking, well, hold on, Luke, if it's vague, what are you talking about? Well, the simple reason, the fact, if I've only ever seen this movie once, I've seen it once in full. And then since then, I've only seen it in parts, right? But it's a movie that's always stuck with me, mainly for the visuals. And this is the thing when it comes with Zack Snyder and his movies that he makes, is because Zack Snyder, he is a brilliant director. I'm not going to take that away from him. He's a brilliant director. He knows how to film. You know, he knows what he's doing, and he's got his own art style. He's got his own way of doing things. You know, when you watch a movie made by Zack Snyder, it's by Zack Snyder because he just has a way. You just instantly know, right? So I can't take that away from him. He's visually impressive the way he makes movies, and they are gorgeous, right? Like the movie 300, for example, is one of the best movies he's ever made, up there with Watchmen and stuff like that. You know, I just love the way he shoots films, right? So visually, his movies are very impressive and they stick with you forever. His writing, on the other hand, when he writes the movie, it falls off a cliff, it takes a full-on nosedive, and then just, whoa, save me, fire, death, and you know what I mean? Like it's terrible. Like it's not good at all. And this is the thing about this movie, is the fact that I don't remember anything about the story. I remember there being gorgeous women in sort of very sexualized, low-cut sort of t-shirts with samurai swords and guns, fighting Nazi zombies. And I think there was a mech at one stage as well, with blimps and zeppelins and stuff like that. Like I remember the visuals. I remember, you know, the spectacle of it. But in terms of the plot, I can't remember for the life of me. And for me, that sounded most interesting because all the other Zack Snyder movies that I've watched, I can remember, I can recall. Like I said, I'm a big fan of Watchmen. I've read, the Watchmen graphic novel. I own it. Alan Moore is a genius. And when what Zack Snyder was able to do with the Watchmen and really translate a book that people saw was untranslatable to screen, he did a brilliant job. And this is the thing about Zack Snyder, is that when he's doing films that he didn't write, like Watchmen, like 300, like that zombie movie he made, which the name escapes me right now, but his zombie movie, when he's doing films that he didn't really have a hand in, it's brilliant, he's fantastic. But then when he starts putting pen to paper, you're like, oh no, Zach, don't do it. That I can't even remember the name of it, but like that Netflix movie thing that he did recently, which was absolutely terrible, that nobody liked, that visually impressive, but like was a waste of 2-3 hours of people's lives. And then he did like the unedited director's cut version, which was longer, which was even worse. And like, don't get me wrong, I'm not here to hate on Zack Snyder, because I'm not. That's not what I do. I don't like to hate on people. Dawn of the Dead, that was it. He was the director of that. He didn't write it. I'm not here to dog on Zack Snyder. I just want to make it clear the fact of my memories of this movie is just the fact of visually, it's impressive. Visually, I remember the visuals and the spectacle, and that's what stuck with me forever. But in terms of story, no. I even decided while I was doing that to look up his filmography. So he directed Dawn of the Dead. He didn't write the movie, though. 300, he wrote and directed it, but it was co-wrote with Kurt Johnston and Michael B. Jordan. Gordon, sorry, not Jordan, Gordon. Watchmen directed, didn't write. Legend of the Guardians, The Owls of Gold, which I do quite like that movie. It's an underrated film of his, to be honest. But again, it's more spectacle than story. But he didn't write the story of that because that's an adaptation of a book. Sucker Punch, he directed, produced it, and wrote it, and co-wrote it with Steven Shibura. Man of Steel, he directed but didn't write. Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, directed but didn't write. Justice League, he directed but wrote the story. Same with Zack Snyder's Justice League, the extended version. Army of the Dead, which I didn't even finish that movie. I got halfway through and thought it was terrible. Like, the movie lost me when you had men in parachutes parachuting down into basically a horde of zombies, and they're just going crazy and trying to shoot them. Like, funny visual, great visual, but you lost me at that stage. And after that, I just didn't want to watch the rest of the movie. And that was it. Rebel Moon, part 1 and part 2. He wrote, directed, produced it, blah, 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 and all that jazz. So again, I'm not here to dog on Zack Snyder. I'm not. Again, I am a fan of his. I just wanted to make that sort of clear, the fact of when he directs, he's amazing. When he directs and writes, things get a bit loosey-goosey. But we'll get there. We'll get there. So, for anybody who hasn't watched Sucker Punch or, like me, don't remember the story, this is the film synopsis. So it goes as follows. Locked away, a young woman named Baby Doll retreats to a fantasy world where she is free to go wherever her mind takes her. Determined to fight for real freedom, she finds 4 women, Rocket Blondie, Amber and Sweet Pea, to join together to escape the terrible fate that awaits them. With a virtual arsenal at their disposal, the Allies battle everything from samurais to serpents while trying to decide what price they will pay for survival. So that is your synopsis, and that alone sounds fascinating. And then when you look at the poster, and then you look at the stills in this movie, like, oh my god, it's very artistic, it's very beautiful. Like again, nothing that I remember from this movie. I remember it being very on the nose of like Alice in Wonderland meets sort of survival, sort of post-apocalyptic sort of thing. You know, that's the things I remember now looking back at the photos. Oh, I remember that scene. So, you know, certain things, visuals I remember, but you know, the story, I think it will come back to me when I watch it, but we'll see. Anyway, as for the cast, you've got Emily Browning as Baby Doll, Vanessa Hudgens as Blondie, Abby Cornish as Sweet Pea, Jenna Malone as Rocket, Jamie Chung as Amber, Carla Gunina. Again, I still can't pronounce her last name, but you know, I reviewed a movie that she was in, Spy Kids, couple weeks ago now, so it's funny that you know, in such a short amount of time I've reviewed no movie that she's in. But anyway, she plays Dr. Vera Gorski. Oscar Isaac, I didn't even know he was in this movie, I completely forgot, but he's in this movie as Blue Jones. John Hamm as the High Roller, Scott Glenn as Wiseman, and Richard Cetrone as CJ. And that is your cast. As for production, so there's a lot to say about this movie, so I've split it up into sort of development, casting, training, post-production design, and a few extra things. So it's quite a lot to get into, so without further ado, let's get into it started. So let's start with the development. So Sucker Punch was described by Snyder as Alice in Wonderland with machine guns. Well, no, I completely agree with you there. The film first gained attention in March 2007. Snyder put the project aside to work on Watchmen first. The film was co-written with Steve Shibura, who authored the original script on which the story is based. Snyder directed and produced with his wife and producing partner, Deborah Snyder, through their Cruel and Unusual Films banner. Wesley Collar served as executive producer. Zack Snyder says, a while ago I had written a script for myself and there was a sequence in it that made me think, how can I make a film that can have action sequences in it that aren't limited by the physical realities that normal people are limited by, but still have the story make sense, so it's not, and I don't mean to be mean, like a bullshit thing like ultra-violent or something like that. So, quote from Zack Snyder. Warner Brothers announced in early 2009 that they would distribute Sucker Punch due to the success of Snyder's previous film, Watchmen. They never said, it could have been shorter, or too bad it's so R rated-ish, and that's really cool. I'm challenging them again with Sucker Punch. In early interviews, Snyder stated that he would make Sucker Punch an R-rated film, but a later interview stated that he was aiming for it to be rated PG-13. In its theatre release, the movie was ultimately rated PG-13. Snyder cut many crucial scenes before the film's release in order to satisfy the MPAA's censorship, but claimed that the home media release of the film will be a director's cut and closer to his original vision. I'm going to have to get my hold of the original cut of this, of the director's cut of this movie, and maybe watch them both and to see and compare which one's better. But that's something I'll look into, and I'll let you know when it comes to the review if I manage to do that or not. Anyway, when Snyder was in San Diego hosting a Blu-ray live screening of Watchmen from San Diego Comic-Con, he handed out T-shirts for Sucker Punch featuring the first art for the film. The art was designed by Alex Pardee of Snafu Comics, with title artwork by Los Angeles graffiti artist Galo Canto. Pro-production began in June 2009 in Canada. Snyder had also added that he enjoyed the freedom of filming his own original script. Producer Clay Emos was hired to take still pictures on set and to take portraits of the main actors. As for casting, so before casting started in March 2009, Snyder revealed his ideal cast for the feature film. He chose to go with an all-female cast in this film, saying that I already did the all-male cast for 300, so I'm doing the opposite end of the spectrum. Snyder had tapped Amanda Seyfried first for the lead role of Baby Doll. When asked if Seyfried was up for the role, Snyder said, "We'll see. We're trying to, so she's great. It would be great if it worked out." Snyder had also offered roles to Abby Cornish, Eva Rachel Wood, Emma Stone, Vanessa Hudgens. However, Seyfried turned down the role due to a conflict in schedules with her HBO series Big Love. Browning agreed to replace Seyfried in the role during the confirmation of her involvement. Hutchins, Wood, Cornish, and Stone were all still in talks. According to Brie Larson in a 2020 video on YouTube, she mentioned she auditioned for Sucker Punch. Wood dropped out of the project due to scheduling conflicts with her recurring role in HBO's True Blood and stage production of Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark. She was later replaced by Malone for the role of Rocket. Chung was signed up to play Amber. Emma Stone had been offered the part but declined due to scheduling conflicts with her film Easy A. Frida Pinto was also considered for the role of Amber before it went to Jamie Chung. Gregorio was cast as Madame Gusky, a psychiatrist in the asylum. Previously worked with Snyder on Watchmen. She was Silk Spectre 1, the first one. Ham was confirmed in late August 2009 to play the High Roller. Isaac was also tapped at around the same time. Snyder confirmed that Glenn agreed to be involved in the project, portraying the Wise Man. So that is the casting. As for training, so prior to filming, the cast had 12 weeks of training and fight evaluations beginning in June 2009 in Los Angeles and continuing through filming. The leads in the film were trained to deadlift up to 250 pounds for their roles. Damon Caro, the stunt coordinator and fight choreographer for 300 and Watchmen. Snyder's previous films was hired for the action design, stunt training, and fight choreography for the movie. The other cast members started training without Hudgens while she was involved with other projects, including Beastly. Abby Cornish said that the rest of the cast were training 6 hours a day, 5 days a week in martial arts, swords, and empty hand choreography. Jenna Malone also stated that her daily routine comprised 4 hours of warm-ups, mixed martial arts, training, then 3 hours of weight training, then firearms training, then tactical positioning, and then pole dancing lessons. That's a lot, bloody hell. Snyder said that when the girls are fighting, like they're on their way to kill a baby dragon, they're killed all of these orc-like creatures, and they're entering a door, and it's like this classic real Navy SEAL style room clearing. They have machine guns, but they're fighting mythic creatures, impossible creatures. The hand-to-hand stuff is all brutal because Damon did all the fights in Bourne, and it has that vibe to it. Snyder remarks that in the girls' imaginations, they can do anything. right? As for production and design, so pre-production began in Los Angeles in June 2009, then moved to Vancouver in July. Principal photography began in September 2009 in Vancouver and concluded in January 2010 with an $75 to $82 million budget. Post-production began in September 2009 and was expected to last until January 2010 in Vancouver and Toronto. Originally, production would have started in June 2009, but it was postponed. Production concluded on January 22nd, 2010. Snyder confirmed that prior to the set production date, he had already shot some fantasy sequences for Sucker Punch. Snyder said the film is a stylized motion picture about action and sort of landscapes of the imagination, things of that nature. Snyder has also been decided on the film's title for some time, stating it is as a pop culture reference. It's about, hopefully, what the movie feels like when you watch it. More than a specific, it's a story of this person. It's all stylized. So it wants to be like a Sucker Punch. It's meant to kind of hit you like, out of nowhere. The film includes an imaginary brothel that the five girls enter in the alternative reality. When singing and dancing take place, the fantasy sequences include dragons, aliens, and a World War I battle scene. Snyder expressed his interest in the film's content, saying, on the other hand, though it's fetishistic and personal, I like to think that my fetishes aren't that obscure. Well, I'm not sure about that, mate. From what I remember this movie, they're very high. Anyway, who doesn't want to see girls running around and down the trenches of World War I wearing wreaking havoc? I'd always had an interest in those worlds. Comic books, fantasy art, animated films. I'd like to see this. That's how I approach everything and then keep pushing it from there. Rick Carter served as production designer, while the visual effects of the film were done by Animal Logic, with 75 visual effects specialists and the moving picture company, who were awarded over 120 shots. Sucker Punch operates on 3 levels of reality, then a sub-reality where the psychic ward world shifts into a strange high roller brothel. The final level is made up of a dream world where more action sequences that are removed from time and space take place. Warner Brothers announced earlier that Sucker Punch would be released in 3D format. Snyder describes the conversion into 3D as a completely different process. However, it was later announced that the film would not be presented in 3D. Snyder filmed a maximum movie mode interactive Blu-ray commentary for the film's home media release. Snyder wanted to design the film as something with no limits, considering that he co-wrote the script from an original idea. He added that he wanted it to be a cool story and not just like a video game where you're just loose and going nuts. Snyder also noted that the influence of Asian iconography, particularly Japanese elements such as samurai anime and mecha, he wanted to add in. What else? There was another bit as well. So I got a little bit about the title as well. So although the title Sucker Punch is not explained in the film, Snyder has mentioned that there are 2 reasonably valid ways to interpret it. There's a mechanism in the movie that sneaks up on you. We sort of plant the seed of this thing, and then at the end of the movie, it kind of comes back around. I think that in some ways, that's what the Sucker Punch is. But also you, the audience, have like a preconceived idea when you look at Baby Doll. You think she's innocent and sweet, that she's capable of only a certain amount of things. But I think that's a mistake. So that has something to do with the title too. Andrew O'Hare, writing in Salon, says the film's title as its essential theme, saying, if you want to understand Snyder's central narrative gambit, it's right there in the title. He gives us what we want, or what we think we want, or what he thinks we want. Absurdly fetishized women in teeny little skirts, gloriously reptilious fight sequences loaded with plot coupons, pseudo-feminist fantasies of escape and revenge. Then he yanks it all back and stabs us through the eyeball. Well, that's one way to explain it. And that's it. That's everything I've got on the production of this movie. To be honest, going for the production and sort of reminiscing as well about this movie, like, I do have to admit, I do have to concede, like, Zack Snyder, he's a visionary. You love his movies or not, he is a visionary. Like, he doesn't really care. Like, he generally just makes whatever he wants to make, and that's it. And you have to commend him for that. I know I do, at least. So, yeah, I'm actually kind of excited to go back and look at this movie to see, as it held up. Is it as good as I remember it being visually? Is the story any good, or is there a reason why I don't remember the story? So I am excited. I've got my sort of fingers crossed that it will sucker punch me. Not in a negative way, like where I feel like, oh my god, what did I do that for? But kind of hits me out of nowhere. I'm like, oh my god, yeah, I get it. So I've got my fingers crossed. I'm hopeful. But we will see. So, as they say, in Zack Snyder we trust. So fingers crossed. I'm going to go into this movie. Hopefully, I can get hold of the DVD and then watch like the theater version and the extended version or the director's cut and see which one's better and maybe add that into the review later. But either way, I'm going to give my first impressions, talk about the story, production design, overall thoughts, bit of trivia if I can find it, and then we'll wrap it up nicely. So I'll see you all very soon in a minute. And we are back. Well, to be honest, I'm surprised, and I'm shocked because, well, I think I'm a Sucker Punch fan. Generally, I no, like is the wrong word. Love. I think I love this movie, which is incredibly surprising and shocking to me, and probably is to you listening, because generally, after I did the introduction, I went online, I found the extended cut of the movie on Blu-ray. It was a triple pack, so I managed to get the Blu-ray and the sort of original version of the movie. And I just had this sense of feeling in me. I thought, this is going to be a bad movie. I'm going to hate it. It's going to be a negative review. So when the Blu-ray finally came and I opened it, and it was in brilliant condition, I looked at it and I went, oh God, I just thought of a joke. I thought to myself of like, oh, it'd be funny if like, I hate the movie and then I say something on the lines of, I don't know if I made the right choice or not, where I've like, I found myself a really good movie, or am I stuck with a copy of Sucker Punch? Ha ha ha. That sort of thing. I was trying to think of like, funny sort of jokes to kind of make up for the negativity, that sort of thing. But what I thought I would do, to kind of really refresh it, watch the movie twice. Watch the movie first as the standard version, the version that everybody saw when they went to go cinemas to watch this film, and then watch the extended version, and then sort of watch some of the special features and to kind of get a feel and idea of what this movie is about, and sort of the extended versions. And when I first started watching the original cut of the movie, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, visually beautiful. It's gorgeous. Like I was absolutely right. It is so viscerally stunning that I was like, this movie, it's Zack Snyder all round. It's got feels of, it feels like Tim Burton, but there are moments where it feels like other sort of movies. Like for example, you have Pan's Labyrinth by Guillermo del Toro. It feels like a Del Toro movie. It feels like Alice in Wonderland. It feels like it's Zack Snyder because the visuals, but at the beginning of the movie, it doesn't feel like Zack Snyder. It feels like other well-known sort of have their own sort of unique feelings of aesthetic, shall we say, of how they make movies. So it felt like them. And as the movie went on, as you see the visuals, I was blown away. And as I'm watching it, I'm sitting there thinking, this is just a glorified music video. Because that's what it is. You see the beautiful visuals, and then you have Baby Doll, and she starts dancing. And then, she's in like feudal Japan, and she gets her weapons and she goes up against some Oni, and she's fighting them, and the music's going, and it's hardcore and it's metal, and I'm here for it. Like I'm fully here for it because it's funny. I was reminded of my Titan AE review that I did last year, and if you've heard that review, if you've watched the movie, you'll know what I mean. But when I was watching that movie, there is a moment when they go to an alien planet and they've got to get some device. and they're chased by these like alien vampire bat sort of things. And I remember making the comment being like, this feels like a really epic like heavy metal music video. And that's what this movie feels like. There are many scenes where I'm like, okay, this is just basically Zack Snyder wanted to do a music video, but then decided to make it into a movie. And there's things like this I'm going, okay, you know, like I get the visuals, but like, you know, I wasn't getting it. I wasn't selling it to me. What pulled me in and what made me a fan, and I'll go into more detail of this in a minute when I get around to talking about the story. But what really pulled me in to it all was not just the idea and concept, but the story itself. You know, because what this movie is and what this movie really focuses on, what this movie, like the premise of it and in terms of the story, is this idea that you have Baby Doll and that her and her sister's mother dies, and then the dad goes in the will, realizes that all sort of the mom's money and possessions is going to go to the daughters. So the man, the husband, in a sort of drunken rage, or stepfather, he's not the actual dad, but stepfather, pissed off at this, so he tries to assault and attack Baby Doll. She's not having it. She puts up a fight. So he realizes, well, if she's going to put up a fight, you know, I ain't having her. So he pushes her down, tries to go after the younger sister. Baby Doll comes in, saves her younger sister, tries to shoot him, misses, ends up sort of shooting her sort of younger sister. And then sort of her father sort of, she runs away. The police capture her. Her father institutionalizes her. But has a deal with Oscar Isaac's character, who is like the head doctor of the sort of asylum, and basically like pays him like $2,000 to basically get her lobotomized so that she won't remember anything, because he's lied and told the police that she's mad and she's crazy, she attacked me, she killed her sister because of the death of her mom, sent her loopy, and obviously he doesn't want Baby Doll telling the true story of what he tried to do to her and her sister. So again, he's just trying to cover it up, but by putting her, locking her away and getting her lobotomized. And the reason why I love this story, and the reason why I think the visuals are somewhat important, is this deeper, more like what this movie lacks is depth in story, because what's there with the story is the fact of again, I'm trying to put all my, because I've just finished watching the extended cut. So if you sort of, please do bear with me if I'm a bit sort of scatterbrained, because I'm trying to sort of organically let it all stream. But there's so much going on in this movie. I'm trying to break it down sort of organically as best as I can. But sort of the depth of this story is the fact of the lengths that the human brain will go through to protect its host. And what I mean by that, and this is the true thing, this is real science, this is real psychology, this is something that you can look into and research yourself, and this is absolutely true. People that go into traumatic experiences or have seen traumatic things or anything like that in life, no matter what it may be, there's a thing that the brain does where it makes you forget things, or it changes events, or it makes you see and perceive the world differently. And this is true science. This is a real thing, and it's a way of protecting you. It's a way of protecting you. Your brain protects you from the harms of the events, or the harms of your reality, or wherever you are. And that makes sense for this story, because when Baby Doll goes into the asylum, she looks around the asylum, she sees it, she sees where she is. Obviously she's not insane, she's not crazy, but obviously she has got the trauma of killing her sister and her mum's death, and obviously what her stepfather tried to do to her and her sister. So she has got the trauma there, but she's not crazy, you know, not as crazy as her stepdad is trying to say. So she's looking around, she's seeing where she is, she realizes where she is and where she's stuck and all the other trauma she's dealing with. That the way that she deals with this and what's going on is that her reality changes, so that she is in sort of a burlesque show, that she is a sort of exotic dancer, that she is a performer, and all the other inmates, all the other girls are performers as well, and that the doctor, she is like the sort of head sort of prostitute, the one that looks after all the girls, and all the girls perform and they do a special dance and they perform for the men and all that sort of stuff. So this is her way of changing reality. We see it visually on screen, but this is her way of changing her reality so that she's not in the insane asylum that she is in, that she's an orphan, and that her stepdad is a priest bringing her to here, and that the doctor, who is Oscar Isaac, he's not a doctor. He's like a big mafia boss who runs everything, called Mr. Blue. And the Dr. Gavinsky, I think her name is, she's somebody else. So the reality changed. So visually and the way the aesthetics are, that makes sense to me. But the depth of it is, again, that fact of how you see the way that it changes, because that's how she's dealing with this reality. And I love that. I think it's great. And I feel like what this movie lacks is depth in story. Now, I know the original version's about an hour and 50. The extended cut is about 2 hours and 17 minutes. I realise it's already a long movie. But what this movie, I feel, needs, and I feel what it lacks is if Zack Snyder could get the balance between visuals and story, it would have been perfect. And I feel like this movie would have been enjoyed and understood a lot more. Now, maybe because I've watched a lot of movies, maybe because I've read a lot of psychology novels, maybe because I'm interested in these sort of things and topics. I'm not really sure what it is. But for me, when I watched it, I clicked. I got it. Once I got through the whole sort of the visuals and I got through the splendor, and don't get me wrong, it does feel like a sucker punch. The visuals does feel like a punch in the ribs. Oh my God, that's incredible, sort of thing. It does feel like a music video, but I was able to look over that and actually see the underbelly of what's really going on here, where I respected it more. And I feel like if Zack Snyder could have got that balance, the balance of incredible visuals, of it made sense as to why she was seeing these sort of things and why she was experiencing it, because she was going through trauma and psychosis, that sort of thing. But she had the story as well, where you spent more time in the real world and more time with Baby Doll and the other girls like Blondie, Sweet Pea, and Rocket and Amber. You spent more time with those girls as well. And not just as burlesque girls, but actually in the real world with actually patients. Get to know them. Amber, for example, in this, they show Amber as being a pilot. They give her the big mech suit. They put her in to fly the planes and all that sort of jazz, and the helicopter, which is brilliant. But I would have liked, in the real world, when they're actually in sort of the asylum, there could have been a moment. It could have been. It didn't have to be huge. It could have been a small little detail, because there is a lot of details in this. Now I'll talk about the tiny details in a second. But there could have been a little detail when Baby Doll first walks into the auditorium, or the other girls are, and then you have Amber in the corner with a helmet on, pretending she's going, brrr, 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 pretending she's flying a plane. It could have been a little sort of, it didn't, like, you could have a bit of dialogue where she goes, oh, I used to be a pilot, but I got a bit mental and I crashed it. You could have had dialogue, or you generally could have had some little detail in the back where she's pretending she's flying a plane, and that's how she's dealing with reality. And then that would have made sense as to why, in Baby Doll's mind, because she's seen her like that, that's how she sees her as a pilot. So that's why Baby Doll, Amber, is the pilot. You know what I mean? And little things like that, like Sweet Pea is seen as the leader of all the girls. It could have been little things like that as to why Sweet Pea he was the leader, and why Rocket is the way the Rocket is, and Blondie is the way, and little things like this, little hints, because Zack Snyder already did it in the story anyway, because at the beginning of the movie, when she first starts walking through, she's noticing things. And you're noticing things as well, and especially if you've watched it already. I noticed these things because the camera would zoom in on them, and I noticed them. And when I watched it a second time around, I noticed a lot more things. Like little things, like as she's walking in, there's a guy with a light out, he's got a dragon on it, and there's a sign right behind him. It doesn't zoom into the sign, but you see the sign a few times. It goes, in case of fire, all doors would open. And Baby Doll sees it. She's going in. Like, again, she's not as dumb or as manic as a stepfather says, but she is fully aware. So she's taking in her surroundings. She sees the lighter. She sees the dragon on it, which again comes in later when they have to fight a dragon to get the lighter. She sees the sign that if there's a fire, let him out. She sees the chef. She sees the knife. She sees the key dangling around sort of the neck. There is also a train in the background, a big cut-out version of a train when they get in the auditorium. She sees the auditorium and what the doctor's doing with Sweet Pea on the stage, getting them to act out through music their trauma, which again makes sense as to what sort of Baby Doll does. Acts out a trauma through music. And she's also listening to the conversations that the doctor and the stepdad are having. So she's listening to them, and she sees the girls in front of her. So you could have had just more little hints, little moments where if you notice it, you notice it. But when not Sweet Pea, where Baby Doll is noticing these small things, where Amber's a pilot or pretending to be a pilot, and little things like that, then it would have made more sense as to when we came into the burlesque side of it, and then when we came to the actual sort of fighting and the sort of the big spectacle where they're fighting like steampunk Nazi zombies and stuff like that. Where it makes a bit more sense. And I feel like that is, for me personally, and potentially for other people as well, even though I fell in love with this movie and I really do enjoy it. And I had a lot of people when I said, because I got the DVD and I took a photo of it and I posted it on my socials, and I said basically on the lines of, look what just come in the mail. Did I make the right choice or did I make a bad choice? Apart my, again, like I said at the beginning of this, that idea of this is going to be a negative review and blah, blah, blah. But the general amount of people and friends I had who replied to me and also the same thing, you've got a bargain there. I love this movie. This movie's great. It's so misunderstood. It's so much deeper. There's some, and I didn't get it at first. It's not until again I watched the movie and at the end of it, I was like, no, I get it. This movie is deep. At the end of it, I just wish it was deeper. I do wish that there was more of those moments, like, again, more moments with Baby Doll and the other patients where she's sitting and she's talking to them in the real world. Again, as I watched this movie the second time round, I even thought to myself this idea of, what if instead, because the whole premise of this movie, when Baby Doll goes to see burlesque, they all have, like I said, they all have to do a dance, and a Baby Doll, she starts dancing, and as she starts dancing, you don't see her dance, but obviously you see the visuals. And the first dance she does is where she goes up against the Oni. She goes against the Japanese sort of Oni. She fights them and that sort of thing. I mean, again, it's a visual spectacle, and I will get that to specifically each one of those sequences in a minute. There is just a lot to talk about in this movie, which is great. You never get to see her dance, but apparently you are led to believe that her dancing is impeccable. It's incredible. It's like the best dancing ever. It blows Mr. Blue away, which is Oscar Isaac. It blows the doctor away. She's clapping. Apparently she never claps. All the other girls say like she's a visionary, incredible, and this leads them into wanting to follow her, into finding a way to escape, which is great, which is fine. But I feel like what could have been interesting is instead of her doing the dancing sort of side, because, and again, I'll get onto my little negative with the dancing a bit later on. But instead of doing that, you could have had a moment where she gets to know each one of the girls. She gets to know them, and each one of the girls helps her with her trauma. So when she's fighting the Oni, she's getting her weapons. That's when she's getting her strength back. She's sort of reviving herself, where she's like, okay, I'm going to get my fight back. I'm going to survive. I'm going to get out of here. Great. And the second one, where they're fighting the Nazi zombies, could be a way of her dealing with fighting back against the Germans, fighting back against the generals. Could have been a way of the ladies helping her fight back against what her father-in-law was trying to do to her and her sister. And at the end of it, you go back to reality. Oops, there goes gravity. Where they're back in the asylum, and they're all dancing around, being silly. They've got like twigs, or they've got like brooms, and pretending they're shooting things. It adds a bit of levity to it, a bit of life, a bit of humility, a bit of honesty to it as well. Where it's like she's snapped out of reality. She's come back to sort of out of the fantasy, come back to sort of the real world. And she's seeing it all again, but she's slowly getting back to herself. But then she snaps back into the burlesque because she's not just ready yet. And then as she goes through each one of these trials of them trying to escape, and the ladies helping her, by the end of the movie, you could have her back in reality completely. We do it in this movie anyway, but back in reality completely, where she's like, finally, she's recovered, she's saved, she's been healed, she's been saved by these girls, and within those girls helping her, she's then helped those girls to help themselves. As again, Amber, I know I keep going back to Amber, but because she has pretty much the most to do, specifically in terms of a role position. Again, helping Amber, fill her dream of being a pilot, that sort of thing. So she finally gets to fly, or helps sort of Sweet Bee get her courage back, or helps Rocket become that live wire sort of eccentric, fun, quirky sort of person. So she could have been really quiet when she first meets her, and then by the end of the movie, she's really loud and bright and wonderful as she is in that fantasy world. Kind of like a Patch Adams sort of situation. I'm thinking of. But I feel like that could have been a cool way of doing it. Again, I know this movie is almost 2 hours long, but that could have worked. But the way it works now, I know is fine. Like I said, the only real sort of negative that I have is this whole thing of so in the story, they have this idea that when Baby Doll dances, everybody is in awe, everybody is in shock. She's like, "Oh my god, she's like best dancer ever." You never get to see it, but okay, she does. And then in the meantime, you have like Sweet Pea. She goes off and tries to get the map, or that she's dancing for the cook. And then in the dream of dancing for the cook, they're trying to get the knife and these sort of things like that, right? Which again, and they do it as well for one of the people. It's an orderly, but they in her world it's the mayor, and they've got to get the lighter off him and all that again, which is fine. But it makes me think of, hold on a second. So if in Baby Doll's reality she's dancing, what is she actually doing in real life? And again, you don't need the answer, but but it wasn't something that I thought about until the second time I was watching it, thinking, what is she doing in real life? Well, what is she doing to distract the guards or to distract the doctor while the other girls go off and get, the knife or the key or the light or anything like that? What is she doing? Is she actually doing a dance? Is she making a ruckus? Is she going crazy? She's going wild? These sort of things. That's what I mean. It's little things like what is she actually doing? And again, it's not overly important, but for me, I'm sitting there thinking, well, what is she doing? Is she actually doing a dance? And I feel like this is why I think it'd be a better thing if you've got those group of those girls acting out, fighting Nazi zombies or fighting a dragon. And the guards are watching it, and the doctor's watching it, thinking, "Oh God, here we go." The children are playing, sort of thing. It's silly, blah 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 blah. And while they're distracted of them playing a fantasy or whatever, or putting on a play or something like that, it doesn't really matter what it is, but you get to see what they're doing. It makes a lot more sense than Baby Doll's dancing really sort of sexually or like with like hip thrusters and movements and grunts and blah blah blah. And that's a distraction of yes, I get it. Because it's like a dance fight. We don't actually see the dance, but we see in her mind what she's doing in terms of fighting creatures and that sort of thing. But I just feel like it would have been better if you had those moments where you actually get to see them play, act out. That would, for me, would have been a bit more believable. But again, that's my only real negative I have. It's just I just wish there was a balance between story and visuals, where you just got a bit more of the girls together talking. You got a bit more of them getting to know each other, a bit more of them, again, like I said, having those little details and just adding things in. Again, I don't want to go over it because I've already mentioned it, but just those little things. I feel like that's my only real gripe, is the fact of if it was a bit more balance between visuals and story, it would have been great. And I've already jumped the gun. I'm already in first impressions, believe it or not, and I haven't even gotten properly to talk about the story. I know I've already mentioned certain bits of the story already, but yeah, Baby Doll, she believes that she's in sort of a burlesque sort of thing. That's how her brain sorts of interprets of where she is to kind of deal with where she is, to kind of protect herself and protect her mind. And I want to talk about the Pacific arenas that they go into. And this ties in with the music, because the music of this movie is not only gorgeous, but this movie has a brilliant soundtrack. It is hardcore. It is metal. It's gorgeous. It is sexy. It is really good. It's generally one of those I would happily go out and buy the DVD or go onto Spotify and listen to the soundtrack, because it is a really top-notch soundtrack. And the soundtrack goes perfectly with the visuals as well. As I mentioned earlier, when it said about Alice, there's a song which I can't remember the name of the song, but it's basically the idea of you take a potion and this one makes you small, and you take this potion makes you bigger, and that song comes on while they're fighting Nazi zombies or steampunk sort of zombies on the trenches of World War I, World War II, whatever, and that's brilliant. And it's like I said, each one feels like a music video. So the first one is, as I mentioned, where Baby Doll, she's doing her first ever dance, and she's in feudal Japan, and she goes up to this temple, and this hardcore beat is just in the background, dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun. She goes in, she meets this sensei guy that I don't know who he is, he just keeps appearing, but she sees this sensei guy, and he's like, "Here's your weapons. It's a samurai sword and it's a gun." And these are weapons to protect yourself, but remember, you've got to defend yourself. And they go outside, and there's three Oni. There's three big hulking sort of samurai sort of warriors. And the first one sort of just fly kicks her. She goes through. She's fighting him. I don't know what weapons he's got. It's like a bamboo staff with a giant spear sort of knife on the front. I wish I knew the name of it, but it's epic. So she's dodging that like the Matrix, flipping around. Like I said, for I know I'm watching it on Blu-ray, and I'm watching it on a Blu-ray player that like upscales it and all. But like, I'm glad I got this in Blu-ray. But I feel like even if I didn't get it in Blu-ray, I feel like this movie would still look good anyway, because the visuals are brilliant. You know, it doesn't look hokey. It doesn't look cheap. You know what I mean? It still holds up. It looks good. And like when you see Baby Doll, she's doing the flips and she's spinning around, you don't look at that and go, oh, that's not Baby Doll. You know, you don't look at that and say, oh, that's not Emily Browning. You know, like you look at it and go, yeah, no, I genuinely believe Emily Browning was doing that. I genuinely believe Baby Doll was flipping around and doing all these sort of things. Like you just do. You know, you instantly believe these things. So the visuals are fantastic. So she takes one out, slices his head off. Next, like comes in with like a giant machine gun, gatling around. And again, it is silly. This movie, some of the visuals are incredibly silly, but it's one of those where you're so lost in the visual spectacle of the whole sucker punch of it all that you just don't really care, to be honest. Like, 'cause there's one moment where he's got a Gatling gun, and she's behind a post, and before she even gets to the other side of the post, the Gatling gun has already chopped through and cleared this one like strong, thick, wooden beam. Cleans through it, then she comes out the other side like nothing's happened. Now, logically, let's be honest, and let's not put logic with a Zack Snyder movie, but I'm going to do it for a second here. Logically, if she was already behind it and it's cleaned right through, chopped it in half with the bullets, she's gone. She's mincemeat. You know, there's nothing left of her. But this is a Zack Snyder movie, so it's more visual, less of making sense. So it goes through visuals, and then she runs around, she dodges the bullets, jumps up on him, tries to throw her samurai sword at him, completely misses him. As he's distracted, she jumps up on him and basically puts her gun straight into his eye and just pop, 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 like, you know what I mean? One of them. Kills him, he's on the floor. And you got the last samurai warrior. And I was kind of hoping for like a really cool, badass sort of samurai sort of moment where she's got her katana, he's got his katana, and they kind of run at each other. And like, you know, kind of like, again, like Matrix, you know, sword fighting. Don't really get it, sadly. It's a very quick sort of death. She kind of like, she gets down, and it's like very sort of anime sort of manga sort of thing where she gets down, and the Oni's running at her with his katana, like full speed, full pelt, and she's got like this clouds around her. She jumps in, and just as she's about to jump in there and he's about to strike her, she slices him across the chest, through the neck, jumps up, lands, only falls and dies, and that's that scene. And again, absolutely brilliant. As a music video, it would have been it would be fantastic. I mean, as visually, it's beautiful and it's gorgeous, and that's again to show that that's like they were asking her after she does the dance, like, you know, what does it mean? What does it mean? Like, you know, what is that dance? And and Baby Doll says to all the girls of like, that is my sort of dance of, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to get to freedom. And they sort of, she ends up sort of attracting the other girls into having this idea of getting out of like, getting our freedom. Like, you know, we only need to get these few items, a key, a map, a lighter. And as I mentioned, these little details that Zack Snyder puts in, the guy that has the lighter later on will become the mayor, and they use as the man. It makes me wonder if, like, you know, did the head doctor, Oscar Isaac, his character, did he have the girls performing for them in terms of dancing, you know, and that's what it was, or did they just cause a fuss or that sort of thing to get, like, again, it's lots of that where you start really digging into it, you start to think, well, what did they actually do, or how does it actually work? And this is why I feel like if it had more of those sort of real world sort of moments, we actually got to see the asylum working as an asylum, not as a burlesque club, that you would have got answers to those things here and there. But again, like I said, the movie's already 2 hours long, but I would have just done it different. I would have wrote it differently if it was me. But I still really love and enjoy it. I just it's a little thing like that kind of a little bit bothers me. Anyway, it's not the point. So they've done that. Then the second one is like, okay, we've got to get a map, and she sees the map in the doctor's office, and the idea is, well, in the burlesque sort of world, Oscar Isaac's character is called Mr. Blue. He's like the leader of it all. As Baby Doll is originally coming in to into sort of the asylum, she sees in his office there's a map, and it gives you a whole detail of the whole sort of building. And she goes, well, I'm going to do a dance for Mr. Blue and all the other people. And while I'm doing that, I need Sweet Pea, I need you to go off and to get this map. Fine. So she goes off and gets the map while she's doing this dance. And the interpretation of that is, they're on the battlefields of like World War I and World War II. They're in the trenches, and there's a giant mech, and it's epic. And like, again, the visuals of this one are really, really good. I feel like the visuals for the mech is where it really lacks, because when you first see the mech in the trenches, it again has a bit of uncanny valley, where there's something about it where it just feels like it's been copy and pasted in. It doesn't look like it's actually there, which is a shame, because it kind of lets it down. Because when you see the mech in action, it looks awesome, but when you see it running around, it's a bit sort of it just doesn't work. I don't know why. Just for me, when I saw that mech, I was like, the mech doesn't. I like the mech. I love that it's there. It's cool, but in terms of like the CGI part of it, it just doesn't work. There's something about it that just feels a bit sort of off. But visually, it's awesome. Again, hardcore sort of music. Very much reminds me of sort of Fear and Loathing, where you've got like Johnny Depp and his friend are in like the in the hotel tripping off acid, that sort of thing. I'm like, the music's going, and I'm like, okay, I love the visuals. I love this idea behind it, and how she sees. This is her interpretation of what they're doing, this whole heist to get this map, because the idea of this world is the fact of there is like a German leader, and he's got a map, and that he's going to send this map off to somebody in high command. And your job, ladies, so that's like Rocket, Sweet Pea, Amber, who's trying the mech, and Blondie, and obviously Baby Doll. Your job, ladies, is to get this map before it's out of your reach completely. So they're going through, they're killing these Nazi zombies, where they're not actually zombies. Technically, they are dead, but they're steampunk, which again I love, because it reminds me of the Hellgast from Killzone, which again is a brilliant sort of PlayStation sort of game series. But it has that sort of look. But I love the idea where they're not actually zombies, but they're dead, but they're not. But they're being powered by steam, which is like so steampunky. I'm like, oh, I love it. I think that's great. I think it's brilliant. And like when they shoot them, when they kill them, steam comes out, which again makes sense because they're full of steam. It's kind of cool. So when they're bayoneting them, slicing them, shooting them through the bullet holes or through the stab holes, you've got steam coming out, which I think is a brilliant detail. So they managed to fight their way through frightful trenches, kill all these sort of steamy sort of Nazi zombies, kill them all. The mech sort of does it, hardcore, brilliant. Gets to the general. Now, I feel like what would have been great for this general is, again, I don't know if it is. It doesn't look like it. But what would have been great for this general, and again, I'll go back to my idea of what they should have done with the story, is if the general was her father-in-law. Because when you see this general, this German sort of Nazi sort of general, his face is all scarred up anyway. He already looks like he's dead, to be honest, or badly burnt. He's like Freddy Krueger. His face looks like pepperoni. And if they made this guy her stepfather, and this is like the big evil sort of general that you've got to get this map from, that when you've had a moment where she kills the general, when the general gets killed, it could have been a form of sort of trauma recovery, some of sort of getting over this trauma that a stepfather had put upon her and her sister. It could have been a way of therapy, really, of a way of getting over, of dealing with that problem, of fighting through all of the Nazi soldiers that you could have sort of used as an analogy for fighting through the darkness, fighting through the evils, or that demon that we all have on our back, that sort of thing. Fighting through that, pushing through, getting to the head sort of demon, cutting the head off it, and then once she's killed him and she's got the map, she's one step closer to freedom, because she's no longer got that demon, that trauma, that memory of what her stepfather was going to do to her and her sister. She's no longer got that sort of dealing with. She's dealt with it. She's killed him. She's cut the head off the beast. She's one step closer to freedom, to having a new life, to starting again, sort of thing. So it's not, but it would have been brilliant if if that was her sort of stepfather or the same actor anyway. Because again, it would have been great sort of analogy. It would have linked into the trauma and all that sort of stuff. But again, I digress. It doesn't really matter, but I just come back to the fact of I just wish it was. Anyway, so she deals with him. She's on her own in this small little underground bunker bit. She kills all these like hell gas, sort of like smoky, sort of steampunky zombies. Kills them, knocks out the general, chases the bloke who has the map, the little courier, who's actually one of the sort of orderlies of it, which I love, which again is another little nod, where a lot of the people, a lot of the men that they're fighting are orderlies. You know what I mean? And I love that because again, she's using what she sees around her. She's taking her reality, which is the asylum, and she's morphing it to suit her. So it makes sense that the men that she sees, which are orderlies, are going to be the adversaries, are going to be the bad guys, are going to be the people that are against her, that she has to fight against, which I love, which is a brilliant detail, you know. And so when she finally gets him, he gets on a Zeppelin, she's getting away. The general comes back, he tries to take out a machine gun, she knocks him out, she knocks the soldier out, she picks up this like Gatling gun, and she's like, brrr, like takes down the Zeppelin. Again, visually, spectacle, fantastic. He gets rocketed off, he lands in front of her. He's trying to shoot her, and like Deadpool, she's every time he shoots the gun, she's getting a katana like she's just batting him away. Gets towards him, and instead of killing the orderly, she stabs the map like in front of from around him, throws it in the air. The general's behind her with all these men, got guns, like give me the map, like he's saying this in German. And then Amber comes out of nowhere with the mech, like crushes the general. The girls are on top, like Rocket and Sweet Pea and Blondie. They're on top of machine guns. Brrr, you know, they kill all the sort of zombies, and they jump on and they fly up and then they grab it and then dance over. Again, visually fantastic. Then the next one, which is where they've got to get is it the key? No, they've got to get the lighter. Next one, we'll get the lighter. The way they tell this story is again, one of the sort of mayors is coming in, and the mayor is again one of the orderlies. He's the guy with the lighter, and they're going to perform for him. Going to do a performance for him and his guys. No touchy feely or anything like that. Literally just a performance. Going to see how she dances to kind of make him come in and spend money. And he's got a lighter, so one of the girls has to kind of sit on his lap, and while he's distracted by baby dolls dancing, she's going to go in, get the lighter off him, and then they've got the lighter. But the way they tell this story with the visuals and the dance is that they're going against like a medieval sort of setting where they've got to get in, kill all these orcs. And it's this one's not as long. I wish this one was longer. But they jump into this castle that's under siege by knights, kill all the orcs. Inside there's a little baby dragon, and they've got to kill the baby dragon. They've got to slit the baby dragon's throat in order to get the fire out of its throat. But the guy says to him, the guy appears again, same guy as it was in the last two, the same old guy, and basically says to him like, whatever you do, don't wake up mum. And what do? They wake up mum. So the giant dragon, it's like House of the Dragons at this point, or like Game of Thrones. Like this dragon is pissed, wakes up, kills everybody, taking her out. You've got Amber and you've got Blondie in like a F-52 bomber. Sort of, is it F-52? The big sort of bombers that were around sort of like World War II. I think so. Anyway, big bomber. They're on the 50 and they've got like a 30 cal. They're trying to shoot the dragon. The dragon's like really on their tail, breathing fire on them. Takes out the back of it. Like you've got Blondie on the 30 cal at the back trying to take it out. The dragon bites it off. She runs back there getting attacked while on the ground. You've got the other orcs are like firing their own men at the plane, and so they've got like critters, or not really critters, but little gremlins on it. But they're not gremlins, they're obviously orcs. But it reminded me of like original sort of gremlin sort of story from like what's it called now? The Twilight Zone with what's his name now? There's something on the wing, something. That one. Will Shatner. William Slater, it's not Slater. You know what I'm on about. That guy from Star Trek. Anyway, it reminded me of that. But anyway, they managed to kill it. That's really, really cool. And then you got the girls on the ground. They're dealing with all the knights, fighting all the knights. And then the mum sees them goes after them, and Baby Doll eventually manages to kill sort of the Mama Dragon in a cool way. But it would have been like, I wish that sort of scene was longer, and that's how they get the fire. I've really sort of compressed it, but there's a little bit more, but it's not as long as that. Really, that's kind of the long and short of that story, sadly. Anyway, then after that, you have the final sort of one, which is they've got to get the knife, and the knife it will help them sort of the safety for escape. The only person who's got a knife though is the chef. Now, one thing I have missed, and I'll come back to it a little bit more later, but Rocket. Baby Doll is cleaning the floor, and this one she's in real life now. She's actually in the asylum. She's not actually in like a burlesque sort of thing. Otherwise, I don't think she is anyway, because it doesn't look burlesque. It looks in like real world sort of asylum sort of thing. Or maybe it is burlesque. I'm not really sure. Anyway, Rocket is in the kitchen with the cook. She's helping him out. She goes into the back with the storage area. She tries to sneak off some cooking chocolate. The chef sort of grabs her, notices it. He goes, "What are you doing?" She slaps him, and again he tries to grab her, tries to get on top of her, and tries to make a move, shall we say? Tries to take advantage. Baby Doll ends up hearing this, runs up, pulls his knife out, puts it under his throat, and says, "Like, let her go, you pig," and sort of saves Rocket's life. And that comes in later, because when they realize they need the knife, they go into the kitchen. You've got the girls in the kitchen, and like Rocket has basically got to sit on the guy's lap while Baby Doll does it, and while he's distracted by Baby Doll dancing, they're going to sweep in and they're going to get the knife off him and then go away. And again, it makes me think of like, well, did she actually was that dancing for him, sexually, because he is a pig. He's already shown that he's already a pig, and this sort of thing. So for this one, was they actually dancing to get the knife over him with these sort of things? Again, I don't know. But the way they interpret this one is that they're in a distant sort of alien planet. There is there's like a nuclear sort of bomb that's on this train, and the train is heading towards a city, and their job, and it's called the bomb is called Operation Knife Retrieval or something like that, which is again very clever. It's surrounded by robots, and like these sort of robots, sort of like I Am Robot sort of robots, and they've got to get on the train. They've got to deactivate the knife before the time runs out, before it hits the city. Because if it hits the city and explodes, all plans are going out the roof. Like, this is the last thing you've got to do. So they get on, they kill these robots. Again, really, really cool sort of visuals. And again, because they're robots and they're not humans, and the rules of cinema is the fact of, if you want to do sort of rip and tear and that sort of thing, it's got to be robots or aliens or monsters. If it's humans, the rating goes up, and then you've got an R-rated movie. But if it's an alien, if it's a robot or a monster, you can have as much blood and gore and all that as you want, and it would be PG-13 or PG-12 or whatever. Yet you can have a low rating. So this is where you see the proper visual of it, where you see the robots getting obliterated, blown in half, bits of oil and bolts and that sort of thing is going everywhere. So they're killing these like futuristic sort of robots. They deactivate it, but sadly, as they deactivate it, one of the robots gets up and reactivates the bomb and basically puts it on lock, so it can't be disarmed. The problem is, what that means in real life interpretation is the fact of the wire that they was using for the radio went into some water, and there's a cut in the wire, so obviously it made electrical charge, shuts the radio off. The guy wakes up from his trance and realizes that Rocket's trying to steal his knife, so gets up, basically stabs Rocket. But interpretation, how they interpret that in this reality, is the fact of I think one of the robots gets her, and they can't deactivate the bomb, so Rocket stays behind with it to basically make sure they all get safe, and he sends away Sweet Pea, sends away Baby Doll, they get away, and Amber sort of flies off with them all, and then you basically sort of Rocket, she sadly dies, and then we're back to reality where we find out that she actually was stabbed and that she does actually die. and that's those sort of visual moments. And then from there, the way the story goes on is that Mr. Blue's like, look, with somebody's died, a lot of things are going missing, and you start to see the true colours of Mr. Blue, of the Doctor, that he tries to take advantage of Baby Doll, but she stabs him in the shoulder blades, and she runs away and finds Sweet Pea, and basically plan his action like, we've got to sort of strike now. So they start a fire, they escape, and it all goes not to plan, but also goes somewhat to plan. Like Sweet Pea's like, oh, where's everybody else? And like, it's just us now. So she sets a fire, and because she set a fire, somebody sets an alarm, which means that all the doors open, so that they don't need the key anymore to kind of get through. They've got the key for as far as they can, but all the sort of electrical locked gates, they all open automatically. They get free, and then they get outside and they realize Baby Doll realizes like, look, we ain't gonna get out of here. Like, the only way to get out of here is if these guards are distracted. So I'm going to distract the guards. She distracts them. Sweet Pea gets away to freedom because like it's her story. And then Baby Doll, she is sort of stuck in the asylum. She kind of gets lobotomized by the Doctor, and then because I'm speeding through things right now, she gets lobotomized by the Doctor, and then they take her away. You don't really get to see her face, but everybody looks at her face like, oh, there's something about her face. She seems very odd. She seems very strange. And the Doctor basically looks at her and goes, it looks like she has that look of like she wanted me to do it. She wanted me to lobotomize her, sort of thing. And then the head doctor, Dr. Gavinsky, she's like, is it all done? And the doctor's like, yeah, I did what you asked. And he goes, oh, no, I never asked for this. I don't believe in the lobotomization, anything like that. And the doctor's like, "Are you sure it's your signature? Like, I've done a few of these and you've signed them, She's like, what? And she looks and she can see that it's her signature, but it isn't. Like, it's been forged by the Doctor, by Oscar Isaac sort of character. And he basically, she gets taken away, not the Doctor, but Baby Doll. She gets taken away, and Oscar Isaac's there, and you can actually see, again, we're in real life now. She's no longer visualizing a ballet, like we're actually in the asylum. And you can see the big gash, like the wound on his arm is still bleeding. You can see it coming through to his shirt. So that she generally actually did stab him. That's real. And then so the Doctor makes the orderlies take her to somewhere, and even the orderlies at this point are like, look, man, I don't want to hurt these girls anymore. Like, I don't want to have to do this. And then you've got the Doctor like, come on, guys, please put her in the chair, sort of thing. And they put her in the chair, and they just walk off like, I'm done with this. I'm not interested whatsoever. And Oscar Isaac's in there, and he's trying to kiss her, trying to take advantage. And he's like, no, that's not right. That's not right. Like, come back. You can't leave. You can't leave. No one leaves until I say they can leave. Because again, by this stage, she's already been lobotomized. Like, she's not there anymore, really. And he's trying to strangle her and trying to take advantage. And then all of a sudden, door comes down, please come in. The Doctor comes in, like taking away. He's trying to like, no, you don't understand. She's not there. These are my girls. All I want to do is protect them, look after them, and all that jazz. He's looking at the Dr. Gavinsky, and he's like, go on, tell him. And she's like, oh, get him out of here. You're like, no. You can hear him as he's going off, crying his eyes out, sort of thing of like, no, like, it wasn't me. It was her father. I can tell you everything about the money and all the other dealings and all that I'm done. And he's gone. And the camera pans around, and you can see Baby Doll, and she's just got this wide eye, sort of innocent sort of look on her face, this big smile on her face. Like, it basically, the engine's running, but there's nobody behind the wheel. Basically, she's gone. Who Baby Doll was is gone. She's just a husk now, really. It's just a living person, but they're really not living. But she's got that look on her face that she succeeded, because despite everything, she might not have got freedom, but she's managed to get one of the girls out, which was Sweet Pea. So she's free. So, where Baby Doll's story ends, Sweet Pea's story begins. And then you do get a little moment at the end of the story where Sweet Pea sort of gets to go off and sort of live her life, her brand new life, and she gets on a bus and she goes off to paradise or goes back to her parents and that sort of thing. I mean, that's basically sort of the story of Sucker Punch. I just feel like, again, I come back to it, is this idea, if there would have been those moments where you actually got to see the place in real life, you got to see what the place is really like. You see how disgusting the orderlies are. How like you had some of the orderlies like, look, I don't want to be hurting these girls anymore. instead of Mr. Blue being seen as a mob boss, you actually get to see the Doctor saying things or doing things that's not right, that's not really up to code. And you get to see more of Dr. Kavinsky instead of as like an old prostitute who's trying to help the girls through dance. You get to see her help the girls out a lot more with their mental health and that sort of thing, or even have moments between the Doctor and Baby Girl and those sorts of things of her trying to help her and that sort of thing. There's little things like that I just feel like would have been better, would have been sort of really added to sort of the more deeper sort of story, because there is a very deep story here, but it's overshadowed by the visuals. The visuals take more priority, and I know it's a Zack Snyder movie, but I feel like if you would have focused more on the story and the characters and had a good balance between visuals and story, I feel like this film probably would have been loved and enjoyed a lot more and remembered favorably a lot more than it actually was. Because I watched a lot of reviews of this movie when it came out, and a lot of people I just don't think got it, or a lot of people just didn't see the point in it, or thought it was stupid or anything like that. And I get it, because again, how could you really explain of like, oh, in the real world, they've got to get a map, and so the girls go off and get a map, and the way they tell that story is through like Nazi zombies. I'm like, what? That makes no sense. Who, what, when? So I get it. I can get where people get confused or think the movie's terrible. But for me, I managed to get it, and I'm glad I got it. I just wish there was more. I just wish this movie is a very deep film. I just feel like it just needed a good balance, and it just needed a bit more character work and development. And like I said, as I mentioned, change certain things in the story, which you had to switch between the burlesque and real life. And the more that she recovered, and the more they helped each other, the more she got to know them. She spent less time in the burlesque world, and she got to see more of the real world, the actual asylum. She made a change to the life of the girls that are around her and that sort of thing. There's little things like that, like the moments where she's in the burlesque and the Doctor sort of kills some of the girls. To see that in real life, see how we actually killed them in real life. I know it sounds a bit sick saying it, but like instead of it being in the fantasy world, like did he actually kill them, or in her mind did he actually kill them? That sort of thing. So you can't always trust it, because you don't know if it was real or not, if it was in her mind and that's how she interpreted it, or if it actually did happen. Because we do know that she stabbed him, because we saw in the real world he actually did have a cut in his throat. So it's little things like that. I feel like little details like that are missing. And I feel like if you had those little details in, I feel like it would have been enjoyed more by the mainstream. But that's neither here nor there. But I did, like I said, I watched the extended version, and there wasn't a lot of extra scenes. It's like 17 to 18 minutes extra sort of scenes. So you had you had longer moments between, like for example, there's a moment when Sweet Pea, she first starts to see the world as a burlesque sort of show, and Rocket is showing her around, and they're explaining how it all works, and that we're exotic dancers, and that we basically perform, and really sort of setting this world, this reality, the world building of what's going on. And normally in the original version of the movie, once they do that little tour and example, it goes straight into all the girls sleeping, and Baby Doll is sort of crying in the toilet, and Rocket gets up, and there's really sad sort of music comes on, and she goes to comfort her and sort of sits with her in the toilet while she sort of deals with her new sort of reality. And then it cuts straight into their first sort of dancing, and she sees all the other girls dancing, and then sort of Baby Doll starts to do her first dance, right? But what you get in the extended cut before that, before the girls are sort of in sleeping and Baby Doll's crying in the toilet, you actually get to see a performance. You get to watch basically Oscar Isaac and Gina Gorinsky. I can never pronounce her last name, but Gina and Oscar Isaac, they're up on stage and they're doing a performance, and they're singing, and Oscar Isaac is singing a song. And as you're singing the song, you get to see all the other girls, and you get to see their performance. You get to see Sweet Bee's performance, you get to see Rocket's performance, Blondie, Amber, and you get to see some of the other girls do a performance. And it flushes out the world, because you get to see okay, this is the world that not only Baby Doll has created, but there's actually texture to it. There's actually detail to this world, and you actually kind of get to see and experience it a lot more. So for me personally, it flowed a lot more, because I was like, okay, now I actually get to see that, there actually is a performance and the girls dancing. For me, it adds to the extra level of detail. But in the standard version, you're just told about it. You never actually get to see any of the other girls dance. You only really see Baby Doll dance, but you don't actually see Baby Doll dance. But you know what I'm trying to say, right? You don't actually see her dance, but she's the only one that actually dances. You don't see anybody else dance. So in this one, at least you actually get to see. Okay, I've seen the other girls dance. I can see what they mean when they talk about their performance and what they do and why they do and that sort of thing. So I love that. And that musical number was actually played at the end of the original version of the movie while the credits are rolling, but it's done in little snippets, whereas you actually get to see the full performance, which again I loved. I think there was another scene where between Baby Doll and one of the girls, I think there's another scene between the doctor and sort of Mr. Blue, Oscar Isaac, and the other doctor, Dr. Kavinsky. There's a longer scene between them. There's also a scene at the very end, which I really, really sort of appreciate. It comes off as a bit weird, but I somewhat get it. And it's a scene where you have John Hamm. So John Hamm he plays the lobotomist, right? And in the original version of the movie, you only really see him at the end of the film. Well, actually, you kind of see him at the beginning, but I'll get back to that bit in a minute. At the end of the movie, and he does the botanist, and then sort of Baby Doll saves Sweet Pea. She gets punched in the face by one of the guys, and then straight away the camera cuts, and you got the botanist guy. He's already sort of put the sort of metal sort of spear through her eye into the brain and lobotomized already. And as he's pulling it out, and that's when he has to shock, oh my God, you see the way she looked at me, her way she wanted me to do it, that sort of thing. And that was in the original version. In the extended version, though, after she's been punched in the face, she wakes up in a bed, and you got these girls around her. They're slowly undressing her, but not in a sort of sexual way, just slowly sort of to make her comfortable. So they're taking off the tights on her legs. They're making her comfortable. They're putting like a wet sort of towel on her eye because that's when she's been punched. She's got a big bruise. And John Hamm, who is basically sort of lobotomist, but in the burlesque world, he is what they call the high roller, and he's who Mr. Blue has been getting her ready for, because apparently the high rollers paid a lot of money to basically see her perform and eventually sort of sleep with her and take her to bed. And sort of John Hamm, and again, I wish this bit wasn't cut because it's an amazing performance by John Hamm, but it's also a great sort of again depth into the story, because John Hamm basically sits there and she's on the bed. She sees him, and he basically says to us, you know me, I'm the high roller, and we were meant to screw tonight. And he goes, well, I do apologize for my sort of language, but that was the idea. But the thing is with me, I like honesty. I don't like to take. I'm not like all these other guys here. I'm not here to take. And he just slowly started to talk to her, and she's talking to him. And he goes, look, I can give you what you want, which is freedom, paradise. I can sort of take you away from all this. And again, I'm paraphrasing it, there's more to sort of this scene that I'm giving off because I don't remember the full script. I'm not an actor. I only saw the scene once. But sort of they're getting in close, and she unbuttons his shirt and she sort of rubs his sort of chest sort of thing. And he goes, look, I can sort of give you paradise, but you've got to be honest with me, and it's got to be consensual, and you've got to be ready. And she goes, she pulls him in, and they kiss, and that's sort of like a sort of acceptance between the both of them of like she's ready to go. She's ready to go, and obviously in the burlesque world, it's to go to have sex, but in the real, it instantly, as soon as they kiss, it cuts back to the real world, and it begins that scene of like he is the doctor, the botanist, of he's given her freedom, and in her mind, in her reality, the freedom is lobotomization, because once she's been lobotomized, all of her cares, her worries, her fears, all of her trauma disappears, and she is sort of in paradise, sort of thing. It's kind of it is a sad ending, but I wish that scene was kept in, because even though it comes off as a bit strange and as a bit weird, the concept behind it, the story behind it, is the fact of in her world, she knew that it was going to end this way, and she's just happy that she managed somebody to get to free. And this is how she, in her mind, is how she interpreted what was going to happen to her. That she sees a high roller, he's kind, he's honest, he's sweet, and he offers her what she wants, which is freedom. And in her mind, it's the way she likes to think of it is they were going to have consensual, loving sort of love, sex. Obviously, in the real world, it's lobotomization, but that's how she dealt with it. And again, it adds to the whole idea of the trauma of her, the way that her brain is protecting her, and the way she's actually seeing the world around her to what it actually is. And again, I love that because, again, I feel like it adds a lot more sort of depth into that sort of thing. But yeah, there is so much to this story, and like I said, I feel like I've already talked for an hour and 20 minutes, but the movie is good, and I do like it, and again, I like the bit at the beginning of the movie, like when she's gone through and she's seeing the doctor, and before she goes into the blessed sort of world and all this sort of stuff. You have these sort of quick scenes here and there where she gets details where she's cleaning the toilets, and the doctor, Oscar Isaac, is behind her while she's cleaning the toilet, and he's acting weird, moving her hair out of her face, and that adds to the fact of he's already got an infatuation with her, and he's already planning on possibly taking advantage of her, or he's already got his eye on her. And she sees the key; she's focused on the key, when she sees the orderly with the lighter, or when she goes past one of the kitchens and she sees Rocket with the chef with the knife, and she's already starting to plan things out. So you can see that the inklings, like the flash forwards of a day or two, or five over the 5 days. You got flashes here and there of her in the real world, and then her on the table about to be lobotomized, and then just before it happens, you cut back to the beginning of where they were, with the doctor. But this time it's the burlesque setting, and instead of being a doctor, he's Mr. Blue, and instead of a stepfather, he's just a cardinal, a father, a priest, and they're in a burlesque setting and that sort of thing. And I love that. I love that sort of little bit, that little detail. I think it's great. But there is so much to this movie, and again, the production design, the costumes, the art design, everything about it is just brilliant. And it goes so well with the music. And I have a few people, I have a few messages, because again, I had a few people on socials that I asked about what their thoughts of this movie and that, and me being surprised. I asked a few of them if I could read out what they said. So I had one friend who basically goes, I love it. It's not what you expect, but it shows great how people deal with loss and trauma. I have another friend here. Where is it? Yeah. Oh, she did a recording. I'm going to play it. Hopefully it comes through. I'm going to have to put my phone up to the mic. Hopefully it comes through. Let me put my sound up a second here. There we go.
Sucker Punch has been one of my favorite films since it came out. I remember when it first came out, watching it. I was the only person at the time that I was hanging out with that liked it or even understood like what was happening in the film. And I just thought the direction of it was so beautiful, and the way it shows the splitting of her mind and how she is dealing with the trauma. I remember being like 17, trying to explain it to people, like why it was filmed the way it was filmed, and like the point of it and what was going on, and like at that age, like teenagers just didn't really understand it, but I adored it. I adored it so much from the opening to the end. It's one of my most favorite films. I think the direction is just stunning. I'm pretty sure I've seen the extended cut. It's been a while since I've watched it, but it is a film that I just adore it. There are only like a couple films that I will be like, no, this is genius work, and Sucker Punch is one of them.
And I completely agree with my friend there. Like, I've been trying my best for this review, try to explain to people that this movie, that it's a lot deeper there, and there's a lot more sort of deeper moments to it. I feel like but sadly, there's just not a good enough balance between that. But there is good. But I had so many people say like I made the right choice. I love it. Great movie. As and it blew me away as I'm sitting there thinking, this is because the people sending me these messages all before I actually sat and watched the film, right? But to get that many people to message me and say, actually, it's really, really good. And like, funny enough, the only real person that actually messaged me who sort of had any sort of like a negative sort of response was actually Neil from the We Need Rose podcast. He went, ugh, I tried, but I don't know how a film that looks that good with such a great cast was so bad. And I can get it, because it's one of them films where you can watch it and you can just experience it for the Zack Snyderness of it, which is just the visuals, and that's it. And you can and you can probably like, well, there's no story here. There's no point to it. It's just a glorified music video. Because again, that's how I felt when I was first watching it. I was like, it's just a glorified music video. You've got all these great actors and cast, but hardly of them do anything. Like Baby Doll doesn't really say much. She doesn't talk much. If anything, out of majority of the movie, most of the other girls and the other actors talk more than Baby Doll, who's meant to be sort of the main character. And she only starts talking a little bit more as the film goes on. So you can sit there and go, what is this? And when I watched it when I was younger as well, same sort of thing. I think I remember the visuals, but I don't remember the story because, there isn't much of a story here. It's there, but it's not utilized as much. It's more of a visual spectacle than the movie, which again is a shame. But it's just one of them things. It's a Zack Snyder movie. It's what you get. But yeah, I can see where Neil's coming from. But to be honest, my overall thoughts of this movie, because I've already waffled on it long enough, is the fact of I generally love it. I do think that I'm a fan now of Sucker Punch, and I don't feel like it's a waste of money. I don't feel like I can sit there and make that joke now and say, "Oh my god, look, I've now got a copy of Sucker Punch. What do I do?" It's more the fact of, "Oh my god, I actually have a copy of Sucker Punch. I love this movie. I can watch it whenever I want now." And that's that. On my version, it's got the maximum movie mode, which is basically as the movie's playing, every now and then Zack Snyder will come up and say, it's kind of like a commentary, but every now and then Zack Snyder will come up like, oh, in this scene, I did this and this, or this scene, I thought about this. And I have seen a version of that already done. I think it was for Sherlock Holmes' Game of Shadows. There's a version you can watch of that film where every now and then Robert Downey Jr. will come up and he'll explain the fight choreography, or he'll explain certain scenes, which again, was a lot of fun, and I really love those movies. So I'll probably watch this movie again, not anytime soon, because I've already seen this movie twice now, and there's other movies I want to watch. But one of the days I will get around to watching that version and to kind of see the commentary and to kind of get into the mind of Zack Snyder as to why he chose to do certain things here and there. But yeah, my overall thoughts are, I love it, and it's not as bad as what people say. I think generally this is one of them films where you either get it or you don't. If you get it, you'll understand it and you'll love it and you'll appreciate it. And if you don't, you don't. But either way, what we all can agree on is visually, this movie is a delight. It's a dish. It's a spectacle, and it's pure Zack Snyder. I just, for me personally, like I said, I just wish there was a balance between visual and story. And if they had chosen to do certain things with the story, change things here and there, I feel like for me personally, it would have added to that depth in characters, and I would have cared more when certain characters died. I would have cared more when certain things happened in the story. That it would have hit me harder. But as it is now, it doesn't hit me as hard because I don't get to spend as much time with them, or at least I don't get to see the real versions of them. I only get to see the versions that Baby Doll, the sort of the personalities or versions of them that Baby Doll gives them. Because at the end of the movie, Dr. Bavinsky does say of like, she's only been here a while, but she's already attacked an orderly. She started a fire. She's helped one of the girls escaped. She was involved with one of the girls getting killed and all this and that. She's only been here a week for but she's already done a lot, but I don't think she's crazy. So we do get hints that she's actually done these things. These things actually did happen. We just didn't get to see them. So we didn't get to see the girls, like the other girls, like Amber and all that. We actually didn't get to see them be the girls. So we actually didn't get time to connect or relate to them. So when they die, it's not as a sucker punch as it should be, part of the pun. So it's little things like that. But overall, I really love and enjoy it. And I feel like this is a movie that you should give a second chance. You should properly give it a second chance of just trying it, because love it or hate it, it's you can't disagree where it's not terrible. It isn't. I've seen worse movies, and this movie isn't terrible. And for me, I really enjoy it. But yeah, so that's my overall thoughts. I hope you'll sort of liked and enjoy it. Before we end things, I want to do a bit of trivia. I know this is episode's long as already, and hopefully I can edit it down, but I do want to do a bit of trivia before we end. So Jenna Malone was so upset by the film's poor reception that she nearly quit acting altogether, which is a shame, really, because Jenna Malone she's a brilliant actress. To be honest, she's been in some great movies. I think probably one of the films that I remember her from the most, admittedly, are the Hunger Games films. But she was in like the Neon Demon. She was in Contact. So she's a good actress. But it is a shame to think, this movie kind of got that bad of a sort of rap. She was going to think about retiring, which is a shame because, as I said, this movie isn't that bad. I just don't think people got it back then. But I feel like as time's gone on, I think more people will probably get and understand this movie a lot more. And at least I hope so. Anyway, as for sort of a bit more trivia, so each of the lead girls had to undergo strict physical training, which involved doing deadlifts up to 96 kilograms, several months before shooting. Vanessa Hudgens called that period tormenting, and she broke down several times. In scenes where she's seen crying, she's actually brought out moments from those sessions. According to director Zack Snyder, Emily Browning's character Baby Doll, who's supposedly naive to guns, shows off way more experience when handling a gun than she should have. She had already received intense weapons training for the action scenes and was unable to unlearn her prior experience for the opening scene. Because obviously in the opening scene, she goes to shoot her dad, misses her stepdad completely, ends up shooting her sort of younger sister, or at least misses and hits the pipes at the back. So unless the bullet ricochets and hits the sister, or she does shoot her sister, I'm not sure. But again, she doesn't know how to use one. To then be able to be very proficient at using the gun is a bit strange, but it's neither here nor there. Anyway, Emily Browning sang 3 of the songs featured in the film. Sweet Dreams are made of this at the beginning of the movie. Asleep, which plays while Baby Doll is crying in the bathroom. And she's featured on the track Where Is My Mind by Yovav. And then several members of the cast and crew semi-humoniously described this movie as one flew over the Matrix. Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, because it does feel very Matrixy and sort of very One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Despite playing the lead character, Emily Browning does not have a line of dialogue until about 18 minutes into the film. She hardly says anything for the majority of the movie. There was originally a scene between the high roller, John Hamm, and Baby Doll, Emily Browning, where he seduces and makes love to her. The MPAA demanded it to be cut down, and the scene ended up looking like he was taking advantage of her. Zack Snyder felt it sent the wrong message and ultimately cut the scene entirely, later featuring it in its full form on the director's cut release. Zack Snyder and Emily Browning have been vocal about their displeasure about the situation. Emily Browning claims that she had seriously been considering giving up acting, but working with Zack Snyder convinced her to stick with it. And Jamie Chung has said that this is her favourite of her own films. And that's it for trivia, really. Like I said, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know it was a really, really long one. I've just realised it's about an hour and 33 minutes. So if you managed to stay this long, I really do appreciate it. And those that didn't, well, they're no longer here. But yeah. I'm going to try and edit this down. It's still going to be a long one, but I just appreciate for those that stuck around. Like I said, I didn't realize I had a lot to say about this movie as I did, but it's just one of them films that I just had to apparently get it all out. So, yeah, I loved it. I enjoyed it. I am surprised at myself that I did. This might be the longest review of this year for me, so that might be a nice little sort of treat for the end of the year when I do my little roundup. But let's see over here there. I'm waffling now. I need to end things because it's getting too long. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. You can check out the Howdy Beans podcast here, then everywhere. Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. If you're listening on Spotify or YouTube, don't forget me a like, comment, subscribe, follow me, give me a 5-star rating if you haven't. Leave comments down below. Let me know your thoughts and feelings. Are you a Sucker Punch fan? Do you get the movie? Do you not get it? Do you think I'm wrong? Do you think I'm waffling? Do you think I'm out of my mind that this movie, like you can't defend it. This movie's terrible. Whatever you feel like in more, let me know in the comments down below, because I'm looking forward to hearing what people have to say about this film. And so thank you very much for listening. I've been your host, Luke the Elder Bean. It's been an absolute honor and pleasure, and I can't wait to see you all in the next one. Bye bye.